Hello friends, Dr. Nels here, and this week we're going to come to you with maybe a little heavy information, but we want to help you. And we're going to come to you this week with information on losing a parent or your dad way too young. Hello friends, Dr. Nels here, coming to you this week with more information on life, leadership, and business, hoping to build your values and principles so that you can be the best version of you. And sometimes we have to talk about some difficult things to help us grow and learn, because there are difficult things that happen to us in life. We have adversities that happen, and we know about many adversities. And as I've said before, we want to learn from people that have done it, that have experienced it. I don't want to hear from people that aren't doing it and in the trenches executing, getting it done in anything. And so the bad part is my beautiful wife has joined us, and she lost her dad way too young. And we remember those journeys and that time, and we remember the time since. And Karen has done it with incredible grace and beauty and finesse and etc. And I thought it would be a good time for her to share some of her wisdom after the passing of her father when you were how old?
I was 35. We're coming up on
35.
the 10-year anniversary of
On the
losing my dad.
10-year anniversary of losing Scott. And so before we do that, why don't you share with our folks some of the good memories you have of your dad?
Well, I want to start first by recognizing that I was 35 when I lost my dad. There's a lot of people that unfortunately have lost a parent far younger than that. And so I want to be very sensitive to that subject. I think whenever we lose a parent, it probably feels too soon or too young. But I was fortunate enough to have 35 years with my dad. A lot of people didn't
you're blessed to get 35.
Didn't get that much time. So
For certain.
But coming up on the 10-year anniversary of my dad passing, so my dad was my person. He was the guy that I called every morning. He was the guy that I looked to when things got tough. My dad gave me the best hugs of anybody I've ever known. He was the guy that when I was pregnant with the twins, I was 9 months pregnant with the twins, and Christmas was coming, and I love Christmas. Christmas is my favorite holiday. And I called him one day and I said, all the neighbors have their Christmas lights up. And he said, you don't have any Christmas lights? And
My husband has not put them up.
Well, I always did the Christmas lights. And I said, I don't have any Christmas lights up. And I said, I think Nell's going to try to get to it this weekend. And it was about 3 hours later, I heard a rustling outside of our house. And there was my dad putting Christmas lights up at our house. He driven from Colby to come put up Christmas lights. So that's just who my dad was. My dad was a generous man and a kind man. We talked about, I think when you lose somebody that you truly love, the good news about death is after they pass away, all that you really remember is the good things, right? So everybody that loses a parent that they had a strong connection with, knows in their soul that their dad was the best or their mom was the best, because the bad memories or maybe their shortcomings always fall away, I think, and you're left with only the good, which I think is a beautiful thing. I think that's a wonderful side of an unfortunate situation.
Yeah, so for those of us with our parents alive, and maybe some things about our parents annoy us, we need to let some of that go sometimes.
Absolutely.
Because you let it go because your parent died, and then you focus on the great things. And so for people like me, there's things I need to work on in terms of loving on and looking past some of those things that annoy us. Because death sometimes helps you do that.
Absolutely.
And those of us that haven't had to experience that are very fortunate, right? Yeah, I like how you put that. Now, what are some of the things your dad worked to teach you every day, or worked to do every day, that you want to work to do every day, or you work to do every day? Or
my dad, he he talked a lot, but I would say at the same time, my dad was a man of few words. He was more of a show you type of person than tell you type of person. I remember very few lectures, if you will, at our house, although we had a lot of long conversations at our house. My dad was very slow to anger. He was a very calm, patient person. And so I think that a lot of times now that he's passed, as I parent Nash and Mackenzie, I try very hard to think about those traits that I loved the most about my dad, and to parent with those traits that I respected so much in him, and to try to honor his legacy in that way by being the same parent that he was to me.
So what were some of those things? What were some of those greatest traits that you try to emulate, or you want to do, or you do? What were some of those things?
I think, like I said, he's very slow to anger. I don't really, we grew up with a firm understanding of right from wrong. Curfews were curfews. You absolutely did not ever break a curfew. You learned manners very, very early, and you were expected to use them all of the time, as you know.
Yeah.
Which is still sometimes a point of tension at our house.
Yeah.
But you used manners at all times. You were always polite. I honestly don't remember my dad ever talking poorly about people really in our presence. That was a very rare thing for my dad to do. He always looked for the best in about every situation and every person. And he was very good at, when things got difficult, finding a way to find the joy in that moment.
Repeat that.
When things got difficult or on a hard day, he could always find the joy in that moment. And so I think I spend a lot of time when I get in situations with Nash and Mackenzie, or even, in my business life, thinking about what would my dad tell me to do right now? Or when I do something, would my dad have been proud about the way I just handled that?
Yeah, I tell people my leadership journey began after I acted like a complete idiot as a leader and walked outside the back door of this clinic and said stuff I shouldn't have said to our entire staff. Left and looked down, and I was like, yeah, my mother would not be proud of me for that moment. Any other traits you're thinking about there? You look like you were going to say something. You're good?
No, I'm in the same boat, so
You are.
I understand what it's like.
Yeah, that's really some of the reason I wanted her to speak, is there's a lot of us roaming this earth that haven't lost a parent. And what I've learned over the years, between not only Karen, but other people that we've had here in the past and still have here that have lost their parent, I've figured out they have some seasoning and special sauce to them that I don't have. And I'm very privileged in still having my parents. And I think for those of us that still have our parents, how do we learn from those that don't, so we can recognize some of these things before they do pass, and we can be a better son or daughter?
Well, I think it's, losing the perspective of losing a parent is like the perspective of parenting when your kids are older, and you give the whole don't blink, it all goes too fast, don't appreciate every moment, which is not realistic, because nobody's ever going to appreciate every moment, right? But the realization and the understanding that there is so much that I would give for one more day.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so
So for those of us that have our parents, don't act like spoiled little rotten brats at 49. Have a little more gratitude that they're still alive.
And show them a little more grace.
Yeah, I'm just as guilty. I don't have enough gratitude, and so that's why we do these things, to be friendly reminders and learn from those that we need to learn from. So how would you, on the flip side of that, how would you coach somebody that's lost a parent too young, whether it's today or it happened a week ago or a month ago or 6 months ago or 10 years ago? How would you coach someone that lost a parent way too young?
Well, I would start by just telling you that it sucks. Like, it just does. It hurts. And I remember when my dad first passed away, thinking like that that heaviness in my chest, like that would just never go away.
Mm-hmm.
And it does go away. It comes in moments like this when your husband asks you a lot of questions about your husband or your dad has passed away. But I think the very best analogy that I was given that I think about all the time right after Dad passed away was, somebody told me, it's like if you have a quilt and there's a hole in it, but the quilt's not very big yet. That hole takes up a massive part of that quilt, right? And so that quilt is maybe you in your life. But as time goes on, like you start adding more memories to that quilt and that quilt gets bigger. So that hole doesn't ever actually go away. But the size of that hole in relationship to everything else tends to get smaller.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that with that size of that hole is where just the good stuff remains.
Mm-hmm.
And so over time, it will get easier. It's always going to hurt on holidays. And, when Nash takes to the golf course, because Nash looks just like my dad and acts like my dad and talks like my dad. And then Mackenzie has the patience of my dad and the kindness and the quietness of my dad. And so I'm lucky that I get to see them, see my dad and them every day, but there's still things that they do. When Nash went to state golf this year, like the first person I wanted to call that morning was my dad. And there's those days that will never go away, and that's okay because that's how we keep them alive.
Mm-hmm.
And Nash and Mackenzie, unfortunately, don't remember my dad. They were too young. But because I talk about my dad all the time and share stories freely about him, they remember him through the memories that we've provided for them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So keep talking about them.
Yeah. That's what
Remind your kids
do.
about them.
Yeah. So we're glad you joined us today. She's a rock star. Tough, deep stuff, tough, deep subjects, but that's what we do. Because we simply want to learn from those doing it, and we want to continue to learn in extremely tough areas of our lives. And we love to help others do that. We can all think of people that have gone through this that should maybe watch this. You can think of some folks that maybe need a reminder that still have their parents alive, that complain about their parents maybe too much, that they need to learn from these things. So we're glad you joined us here. Thanks to my beautiful wife. She's a rock star. We're glad we got some wisdom from her today. Thanks for joining us. If you like this content, click subscribe here. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week, friends.